scaling agile, is it doomed from the start or not? And why am I talking about it is because I have been in this agile scene. Sometimes I like to call it the bubble, because it seems sometimes we live in our own world almost. But working with different individual teams, and also the team of teams trying to get them work effectively together. And also I have worked in these companies that are kind of like from grassroots all the way to the top, that they have started to go to the journey towards the being like this agile organization. And that's kind of, we are now looking into this topic, that is it easy or not, or are there kind of silver linings against the cloud? And scaling usually means that we want to get the benefits of individual teams, like able to build the right things at the right time, to have more value to us as a company and also as the customers and end users. But because we are all individual humans, and it's basically humans working together, it's sometimes challenging to scale when we need to have the effective collaboration with individual teams, but as well with multiple teams and everything around it. So it could be like we are working together, but still something doesn't feel right. Or we have people managing, checking the whole, how it works, but still it kind of struggles. And it might not be as dramatic as this picture I asked Midjourney to create of teams collaborating together with disastrous consequences. So there isn't this kind of end of the world feeling, but still something isn't as kind of the marketing said it would be. So today we dive first a little bit, what does it mean to scale agile? Then a little bit, what kind of good frameworks, tools there could be for first steps. But then, because it's not just going through the motion, copying some framework, what actually benefits you, and what could be the typical reason that it kind of feels a bit like it's not what it should be. And starting from kind of what does it mean to scale and the principles that guide the scaling. And there are different ways to scale. Starting from that, you can scale from individual teams, taking more teams that are not working on the same product or same service, but are kind of individual or very lightly connected. So kind of scaling outwards. But what this webinar is more about, it's a bit like scaling upwards, so that there are multiple teams really working together, or the organization kind of wants to get agility all the way to the top, so to say. So not just wider, but especially scaling up as well. And not so much talked about, as this manifesto for scaling agile is younger than the original one from the 2001. But I like this approach that there are certain things we should value when we scale. And of course, it's shared vision, and not just that we have certain processes working aligned to each other. We allow the growth to come where it needs to be, where we have to have more collaboration and more agile, and not just we do with this structure and that is the way to go. We want the high-performing organization, so not just the individual teams, because even in one team you might have this, how do I get this team to be most efficient, working as a we unit instead of individuals. So when it's multiple teams, how do I get the teams working as we and not as individual teams? And of course, having the teams capable of driving their own work and change and really producing the values. So really trusting us people doing the work, reflecting, improving, getting the people give their best in a scaled manner. But not just starting with the principles, values, but really kind of, you could say them as the guiding, when bicycling, you have these guiding wheels as a child. So those that help you go forward before you kind of can spread your wings and do it yourself. So from the perspective of one team, usually they work as Scrum. So there are multiple ways to scale Scrum. Scrum org's suggestion is this nexus, kind of multiple teams working in the same nexus. So there is still the one product backlog, one planning, so to say, but the end result is kind of the shared understanding what individual teams are doing as well as what the nexus is working on. And it's really focused on this empirical process control so that we pause, we learn what has happened, and from that we make the decisions to go forward. So very lightweight way to kind of scale multiple teams together. But then if also like of lightweight scaling models, there is less, perhaps a bit more known than a nexus achieving kind of this multiple teams working in the same Scrum. At least that's how I like to call it, because there are the backlog product owner sprints, but every sprint teams collaborate actively, especially when it starts and ends. But the values differ a little bit from what the basic Scrum says. So they take this kind of holistic whole approach, starting from systems thinking. We understand the whole as we want the high-performing organization. We check the whole of the product, what the customer thinks, and not get ourselves silos there. And really improving, remembering customer, and of course, having that empirism, that we pause and learn and have the transparency of what we are doing to go forward. And perhaps the most known, not perhaps the pure Scrum scaling framework, but used in a lot of companies to get multiple teams working together and to get this kind of more lean approach than perhaps the traditional waterfall project management methods into these large complex environments. And there it is also kind of respecting the people as we are doing the work and improving relentlessly, but needs the transparency, needs the alignment so that we all know where to go. But there are these key things kind of that needs to be in place in order to get value for it. So depending on the scale that you want to scale, you have to have kind of good teams, good agile product delivery. You might need this understanding of lead portfolio management. So the really big things also go in a lean and smooth manner forward and not just starting everything. And if you want to go higher or wider, there needs to be this understanding of the organizational agility and really to have the leadership support and continuous learning in our core as we work. But really the emphasis is kind of not just getting teams working in a products, working collaboratively together, but really the whole would benefit from agile practices. But as well, another way to do it, kind of very, very other end on the achieving business agility, achieving organizational agility, is then this Scrum at scale. Very lightweight, very kind of Scrum teams working together, minimal bureaucracy, so to say, but focusing that there is these core Scrum values still there, and the teams kind of network to each other and work collaboratively together, but still that there are Scrum Master, manager, groups of Scrum Masters kind of like handling that. We coordinate efficiently, we deliver, we kind of improve continuously, but at the same time we work on the right things and we remember who we are making the value and who should we kind of try to get the life better. So where in long run are we going? What should we kind of prioritize to work on? What kind of product are we focusing and wanting to have? So what and how working together at scale, and that is what we try to achieve. But starting with this different framework, it is kind of like you learn the why, you learn the importance of the values and principles over what they stand, but you learn them by doing usually. And if you only focus on the doing and forget the whys, forget the values, then it starts perhaps going a bit mechanical. You might have sprints or PI cycles or these kind of meta Scrum cycles, groups, but something might be off. And especially this, the creator of this Scrum at scale have kind of trying to emphasize that you shouldn't lose the effectiveness and speed and like good things about individual teams when you scale. So they should still be there, you just get the benefits at scale. And that's, I guess, the framework section, because I could talk about those one for whole 45 minutes, but that is not exactly the main scope of this webinar. So most actually, how do we enable that it doesn't go to this zombie scaling, mechanical scaling, or what are kind of the symptoms that we are maybe not on ideal state? Getting the first steps, getting them working, getting the things working after we have established these frameworks or something, so that it wouldn't go like, well, this didn't work, let's try something else. And then we start to shop and switch, finding the ideal unicorn that would save us. But journey-wise, things to consider, things to remember, that we have to learn and not just be happy with how we are, really needs kind of this courage to explore, adapt, learn, collecting feedback. And many times it might be that we have these scaling frameworks in place, but especially the end feedback, that we really know that are we doing correctly good things in an effective manner, those might take a long time. So how do we have effective ways to get feedback as early as possible? And it might be even from prototyping, it might be connecting with the end users, the team ones, not just somebody in higher up organizations, and really kind of fast feedback to know that we are doing the correct things. It has to be about outcomes, the value, the impact we are making, really prioritizing that over that we will just do these kind of features and velocity and kind of like multiple items, but they might be the wrong things, or we don't even pause to think whether they are wrong or right things. But we have goals, we drive with outcomes and goals, and really try to get small amount of features to deliver the outcomes we want, so that it's not just producing more, but really producing what needs to be. And if the leadership, of course, is not there, if they are not kind of working towards it, getting the culture of the company, even if there's hierarchies or management or whatever structure, you have to have this kind of drive also from there to get the things working, get the outcomes, getting the effective feedbacks, getting kind of the processes more lean. So it needs to kind of like them, how did I just heard it from somebody say, needing to work on the tough problems, others maybe not be able to do it, and they might not be the problems they want to do, but the problems they need to do it. And it might have even been Elon Musk that mentioned this somewhere. So kind of, it's not always a happy journey, but if things struggle and somebody, the team of teams, somebody there can't work it on themselves, so somebody has to take the sleeves and work on the tough ones, be an example of this. We learn, we experience, we adapt, we try to get the outcomes we want. And kind of the fifth one is getting the, I have written here the portfolio management and prioritization, but kind of like getting the whole working. So what are the big important things we want to get done? How do we get priority over them? Not just starting all kinds of things, but really collaborating on getting the most important things done. And that's sometimes tough prioritization, and it needs shared priorities. It's a shame sometimes in organizations that I see, it's like, yes, we have the common priorities, but are we truly emphasizing to collaborate on those ones? Or on the team-wise, are we still kind of, this is the shared goal, the shared prioritization, but yes, you still have to do this and this and this and this and this and this that are less important, and really get them done also. And then it's struggle, things take a long time, or even if you need help from some other team, it might be like, this is the top priority, we really need to get and collaborate as a team of teams in a scaled effort to get it done. And then it's like, yeah, well, but we have this, our top priority one, we cannot help you. So getting the we spirit in team of teams. And actually, do you have, Jani, any questions related to anything I have gone through at this moment, or any comments you have received?
Yes. Yes, so there's a question about selecting the framework. So you presented the frameworks over there, but any recommendations how organizations should select or tailor the framework that would be suitable for them?
Kind of what they wish to achieve is one guidance, and also kind of piloting is a good way also to go. So you can succeed, I would say, in any framework, but you can also fail with any framework if it's kind of like not working for you, or it comes to the mechanical ones, that it's more like a process improvement than actually kind of getting the collaboration in place. But when starting to pilot, starting to get all those peoples, or like the selection of the value, the whole that you want to start with in the framework, in the kind of way you want to do it, and then afterwards you learn their scaling up. So it's kind of like we have done with always in trainings, talk about how to slice the items to smaller, still to be valuable. So we don't want these kind of slices of organizational hierarchies to start with, but kind of that goes from whether it's from leadership all the way, or kind of like a business side all the way, whatever there is, to the actual people who code it, getting them work together, even if it's more narrower area, and then learning from there. But it's good to kind of not just be happy that we took this one and then we just do it and then we forget to really adapt it so it works best for us, and we just do it because it's set in the framework. So kind of going to the basics, whether it's before you choose a framework or while you are working with the framework, like what did we want to achieve? Is this framework giving that to us? So that's key thing to remember when we start working with frameworks. If there would be a one model, you could just read it in a book and just apply it, and all the organizations everywhere would be happy. But it kind of, you still need to learn what is your way, even if you choose the framework.
Okay, considering that answer, the next one might be a little bit difficult one, but well, surprise, surprise, there's a question that what is your favorite about the scaling networks, scaling agile, and why?
Over the years, I have seen many teams struggle with dependencies, and kind of that it's somehow still a waterfallish approach, even though they have teams, multiple teams working together. So I kind of like this minimalistic way. How do we can get multiple teams still to feel like they are one team, as minimalistic effort as possible. So recently, if I have to choose a favorite, I would say I like less approach, because it really, there is these principles and values that really resonate to me, like what should we look out for, what should we check, we need to remember the whole, and it's not just that teams try to work within the whole, but we probably need to also start actively modifying the environment also, so that teams can thrive. So that is my current favorite, let's say it so. So are we all interested in going a little bit, so what then actually like feels like steps to doom, or how it still kind of many times goes wrong, as it's about exploring whether it's doomed or not. And every year there is this State of Agile report that gets published. I at least think it was every year. So now the current latest one is the 16th version. And from there, I picked a couple of results, because they resonate quite nicely to this topic. And good thing to remember, of course, that the people all around the world who answer these many times already have kind of familiarity with Agile. So you could say most of the answers come from this Agile community already. But things that kind of struggle with more or less is that leadership is not understanding what it actually is, how could they help it, how to drive it forward, and perhaps not intentionally, but accidentally, or by not knowing how to work with this Agile thing, putting up roadblocks. So kind of they want to lead the organization towards good results, even with Agile manner, but unintentionally kind of slow the team, slow the scaling efforts a little bit and give some blockers there. Others might feel that it's lack of priorities, clear direction. So we have many teams, but one is going that way, one is going that way, and like everybody's going a little bit different ways. So what are the common, clear goals that we should try for, and are we really emphasizing that are the priorities we have to collaborate, and then perhaps some other things come as lesser priority. And also not just leadership, not understanding, but might be business side, perhaps some business teams, really kind of hard thing understanding the agility. So causing the agile deliveries fail is the management support, company culture. Many times people even say that if you have traditional leadership that has worked well in this hierarchical manner, that they lead and they manage and they control, you don't get the agility at scale working very well. So it goes down to the management they work with, what are their priorities, how they then work with the individual teams, and so on and so on. But also there are those prioritization challenges, lack of expertise on understanding or using the agility, coming from pushing the agile to the people and not really explaining why, or not having insufficient training or support. So these kind of, you could say, things that are not the fault of any individual framework. And that's why I believe any framework can succeed or fail, because usually it comes to other things, that how we use the frameworks that make or cut the success that we might have. But from those and from my experience, I kind of drafted these 10 symptoms you can kind of be aware of, kind of being on the direction of not achieving. And if many of these are kind of check, then are kind of the 10 symptoms of being doomed, if you would like to say that. So how effectively are we collaborating across different units, across different teams, across ICT and business? Is it really collaboration, or is it some process that is mandatorily followed that kind of tells us in who gives the light to somebody and where do the broken phone contacts kind of get clarified and so on? Also, if it's about this is how we have worked, this is our processes, and not having the flexibility nor courage to experiment better ways, then kind of as one framework doesn't fit as described perfectly to anywhere, it might give 80%, 70%, 90%, 50% better results than before, but not the perfect one. And then there is no courage to really learn your better way, then there is some challenges perhaps, or even in the end, the doomed end. Slow or non-existing feedback loops. That is really kind of important. Do we truly get feedback from those that matter when it matters? So not just, yes, we have the backlog, we work with the most important things, but somebody wrote it in there and analyzed and kind of agreed on it, and then it's just hand over for the teams to work on. And then when the teams get something done, do they get the feedback if it was a correct thing, or is it then another something that kind of gets the feedback, or is it just later somehow, somewhere, that we know that we did the right thing and we are working in an effective manner? So the earlier we can collaborate also from teams to customers, companies together, end users, then it's kind of, we are more sure that we are doing the right things. And kind of leading from perhaps the second way that we chose a model and then we just do it as the model says, is this kind of that the grassroots level, the actual team members, especially because they are working in these frameworks or the ways and practices that we have chosen, that if they start to feel like a drag, like mindless rituals that really like doesn't give value, doesn't help you get the outcomes you need, or are just like, yeah, we do this, but nobody wants to be doing it this way. Let's just get it over fast. So usually something is off then, because we want the values, we want the priorities, we want the outcomes to matter more than the exact motions that we do. The motions help, but they shouldn't be the only way. And of course, people trying out themselves, learning as they do, not like given the understanding what it is or support along the way, then it's really hard to kind of have the skills and understanding to do what matters. And this is not just about people are trained in Agile or Scrum or Safe or whatever, but when we have the professionals working in the teams or we have juniors, how do we kind of let them thrive, let them enhance their skills? So, or not just perhaps become better on what they do now, but like widen their skills also, so that we get with fewer additional dependencies, teams and whatnot, we get the end results with those people that we have. And challenges, setbacks, definitely they are going to come. The more you scale, was it upward or outwards, it's not an easy journey. So there comes bottlenecks, blockers, setbacks, challenges. Some are easy to tackle, but some might take time, as we are talking about multiple teams, multiple people, wider kind of areas of the organizations working. So it really needs persistent to work through them and experimenting, the flexibility and courage to like, this is what it is now, there's where we want to be, and then trying something. If it didn't help, we try something else. If it helped a little bit, how could we do something that it helps a lot? So some challenges takes a lot of time to tackle. It's not in a one sprint and yes, this was done, but it might need a lot of effort also from the leadership and management outside of the individual teams to really tackle them. And of course, if there are challenges, setbacks, sometimes it kind of turns into this agile framework shopping. So one in history, a couple of years ago, I heard this kind of frustrated person explain to me, like, I don't know what the future comes, because we used to kind of, couple of years ago, it was all about Scrum. Let's do Scrum. Scrum will save us. We will. Scrum is good. And a year after that, it was no. Now we scale. We take Safe, and Safe is the one to go. And like let's use this one. And now year after that, we have this DevOps. Like DevOps will come, and we will have DevOps, and it will save us. And she didn't know what comes next year. And of course, it might have been that there was a very, and I like to always think best of people, like there probably was that we want to have more agile in our company. And so the Scrum was introduced. It felt okay, so we want to scale. So we start to use a scaling framework. And then it's kind of like this having development operations working collaboratively together and not in different parts or units. They're kind of trying to really get the collaboration there and everything technically, like we really get value out of things. So it might have been that, and I really believe like it probably was, but how it kind of turned and was shown to the grassroots level, so to say, it felt a little bit like the framework shopping. And probably like if you try agile things, you have some organization processes, hierarchies, structures. If you don't change them at all, it might start to kind of block the efforts to get really agile working effectively. And thus, something doesn't work, and eventually, yes, we tried it, but it didn't work and was a doomed effort. But I guess the most important on one perspective at the very end is let our people have a chance to do their job well. Whether it's individuals, whether it's team, whether it's team of teams, but like not throwing bucketfuls of important projects, important work going on all at the same time. So really, again, what's the most important thing we should collaborate in? Because the more things we have going on, the less things we can dive really deep. I have heard product owners that really struggle kind of that they would like to do their job well, but they are so wide and thin, like their resources, that they can really like run from one place to another. And I have heard organizations that kind of really, even from the very top, as I mentioned in the enablers, the prioritization and the portfolio level, they limited a lot how much they kind of take these big initiatives going on at the same time, so that the people they can individually use more of their time on one project, or they can use more people focusing on one project. But they really kind of like projects going for months started to take only for weeks and without really changing anything else. And that's sometimes the thing, that even if you're doing agile, even if you're having a framework, even when you are scaling especially, if there starts to be a lot of things going on, many different teams focusing on many different things because there's so much stuff going on at the same time, it usually kind of brings dependencies and challenges and steps towards the doom. But everything doomed to fail? No. So the mid-journeys picture I showed before, I didn't show that silver lining, the lovely kind of future still is bright if we just work together and kind of tackle the challenges that come. So there is a brighter future that you can have in scaling, but it might take work, and it's kind of like a continuous journey, and not that we take this, we install it, and then we are happy. So ex-colleague of mine said it's not this kind of quick diet, but lifelong journey and way of life if you use agility, and especially when you scale it.
The scaling looks like a really slow process because there are so many dependencies. So any comments, suggestions, what could be done that there is less dependencies, or that they don't harm the process of scaling so much?
One thing, of course, is like if it's a field there is, or like there actually might be, but those that really can like make an impact, whether that yes, we need more certain skills to be added into certain teams so that they aren't dependent on that part to other teams? Or how do we kind of structure our teams, or like understand what kind of dependencies there are, how are they affecting it, what's the impact, slowing, complex things, more risks. So making it transparent, making it visible. Even if it looks bad, it's good to visualize it. And then kind of like, what kind of dependency? We had this dependency during this sprint, and it affected this and this many days of the work to be waited, or kind of like this same dependency with other work, we had that again. So really kind of collecting the data, so that what kind we have, how much does it kind of slow things down, or can we do anything as us as one team or team of teams, or is it always like really complex and full of dependencies? So then we can start to work together as an organization, as with the management, with the leaders, whoever it needs, to kind of how can we improve this situation so that our current dependency, mess is a negative word, but still I use it, to be that after half year, after a year, there would be a lot less of those.